And so I get my chance. So I go, sure, I'll go take a shot at this. So I took off with a tank and with the scooter and went looking for a protected area, thinking maybe he didn't. We would call them like big cul-de-sac streets that dive into these huge kelp forests. And if you go in, if you get to go into one of those, the current's less, the surge is less, and the visibility is better. Typically, it's just like a little clearing in the storm. Mm-hmm. And as I found one, I made my way back there, and then at that point, my life changed.
This is the Tom Rowland Podcast. Fascinating stories to amaze, encourage, and inspire you in fishing, fitness, and the outdoors. And we're brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. I started this podcast as a way to connect with my friends, people that I admire and respect, and you. It has been a learning journey that's made me a better person, a better fisherman, a better father, and a better athlete. I'm so happy that you're on this journey with me, and I'd love to hear from you with show suggestions, guest suggestions, or questions. The best way to get a hold of me is through text. You can text 305-930-7346 for the fastest response, but if you prefer to email, you can send that to podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. That's a dedicated email address just for the show. If you like this show, you can show your support by posting about it on social media and tagging me. Text the link to a couple of friends that may also enjoy it, and subscribe and leave a 5-star review if you feel like I've earned it. The website is tomrowlandpodcast.com, and that is where everything lives. All past shows, you can go and listen to any show. You can look up all the different shows that we've done, both the How To Tuesdays, the full links, and the physical Fridays. They all live on tomrowlandpodcast.com. And the social media is Tom_Rowland, ROWLAND, on Instagram, or you can go to our big account, Saltwater_Experience. I hope to hear from you soon. So now, let's get on to today's show.
Hello, I'm Paul Woyak, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
Paul, what's going on today? How are you?
Doing great, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You're out in California?
Yes, I am.
Right on. And I've been reading up on you a little bit. You have a pretty amazing life. You really have done a lot of things. Why don't you give me a little brief history of where you grew up and how you got into kind of commercial diving first?
Okay. Started out born in Wisconsin, land of lakes, and there wasn't one that was safe. Parents took us 5 kids, had to change the whole dynamic, my mom told me, of one parent was watching the 2 older, then the second parent watched the 3 younger, and they switched it up to one watches me exclusively. That's what my mom told me. And the other one was responsible for the other 4. Couldn't get enough of being underwater. It just was, I couldn't swim, but I didn't want to give in. So I just kept, they had to put these fluorescent trunks on me to find me. So underwater all the time. And then my dad's source of employment moved us out to California. And I saw the biggest lake on planet Earth. And that was it. I never turned back. Saw surfing for the first time, was a monumental moment because I didn't see this wave until it came around the corner of the sea bluff. And I'm watching this perfect zipping tube. And then all of a sudden someone comes out of it.
Oh, nice.
What is that? Aquaman? I was young,
Yeah.
And I never.
How old were you?
10 years old.
10 years old when you first saw surfing?
Yes.
And did that ignite a lifelong passion with surfing?
Absolutely. I didn't know what it was. All I knew after I figured out it was human that I was going to do it.
Now, when you were back up east, were you water skiing and doing other board sports like that, or skateboarding? Did you have anything that was resembling surfing?
Mostly swimming and in lakes. We 5 kids. We didn't have a ton of money. Not kayaking, canoeing was the big thing, and some night fishing for pike. I remember a hole getting blown in the boat when we got one. And crazy stuff happening as a little one, but mostly boating. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to do a whole lot.
Yeah. So you start this this passion with surfing, and how does that get you to the commercial diving?
Well, after figuring I didn't want to do anything else as far as free time, I did, but nothing competed. It was check the waves 2 or 3 times a day and do something else if everything else failed on the surfing end of things. So I figured I might as well get around the ocean somehow. And Santa Barbara City College had at that time, the best commercial diving training facility program that there was in America, which was the Marine Tech program at Santa Barbara City College. So I was right there, and that's where I went. I went right into that.
So when you went into that, what did you expect you would do when you got out of that? We've had other, actually in California, we've had a couple of other commercial diving people on the podcast. It's fantastic. And there's so many different paths that you can take as a commercial diver, whether it's a welder or inspector or all kinds of different things. What did you have a direction that you thought you would take when you graduated that program?
I did. I thought I had enough connections in the Santa Barbara area to land a job on one of the oil platforms. And my friend who I went through the program with, his dad was a long renowned name in diving, underwater welding, bell diving, all these things. But as I was getting out of school, ROVs were taking over the industry and taking over a lot of the underwater chores. And everybody that could get a job in California did. So then everything else outside of that was what you would have to go do in Louisiana in the muddy water, doing scrub work underwater, setting up welding operations was the step that would be necessary. And I didn't want to do that. Together with, I had surfer's ear. So much surfing caused, where back then they would cut the ear, flop it over and drill it out.
Wow.
And that completely washed me out of the commercial diving industry because I was no longer insurable.
Yeah. So when that happens, can you still dive? So you could dive, but you were uninsurable and so that you were unhireable, but did you keep up the diving or what? How do you deal with that injury?
Well, as I graduated and the surgery took place, knowing I couldn't follow the career path I wanted to, I was told I could operate ROVs, on the surface, but I didn't want to play video games. I wanted to be in the water.
Yeah.
So I went and went down to the harbor and landed a job on a sea urchin vessel.
Right. Wow. And so, but the sea urchin is diving, right? Like, yeah, just a different type of diving, or how would you manage to recover from the surgery? And was it different depth or different pressure, or what was different about it?
It was definitely shallower than like oil platform where it would take you to a couple 300 feet sometimes, even deeper with dive bells and these kind of things. And it was just unknown on the possibilities. So they just, they had enough divers in California. So they just said inked. And that led to the decision, well, go chase this somewhere with this unknown condition, or just figure out how to stay here. And sea urchin diving was the path.
So I don't really know much about sea urchin diving. We have sea urchins in the Florida Keys, but they're not really harvested that I know of commercially. But the sea urchins that you're getting, those are the ones that we're seeing in the sushi restaurants, and people are, and there's a market for those particular sea urchins. Do you know what those urchins are called compared to what we have in the Keys? Or
oh man, it's a long scientific name. Starts with Icuasinia. Man, I have it in my book. The Why Am I Alive book has this all broken down.
Okay.
And, but yeah, I don't have it.
I wonder why there's a market there and there's not a market that I know of in the Florida Keys. Maybe I
could tell you why.
Why?
It's because of the water temperature.
Okay.
Your water temperature is warmer, and this longshore current, this cold water full of a lot more nutrients and whatever. So the urchins are eating and producing the roe, the uni, the gonads, the eggs, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people compare it to caviar.
Mm-hmm.
They're producing a much more abundant, tasty product than warm water. We can't even dive. We didn't dive them when the temperature reached a certain time level in the summertime. We would have to lay off because the roe was lousy.
Really? Well, my experience with California surf is not much, but I do know that even in the summertime, it can be cold. I mean, it feels cold to a Florida person coming out there and getting in the water. It's very cold. So when you're saying that the temperature would get too hot to dive for the sea urchins, what temperatures are you looking for, and are you normally diving in?
Yeah, we're hoping to keep it in the 50s, the low 50s.
50s.
Yeah, if it bumped up, into the mid high 50s, then the roe would start getting funky, junky, and they weren't spawning at all either. They were very docile in the warm. These ones that we harvested, the big purple ones, were dark purple. See, I think the ones you have are the light purple ones too. And we have those, and those are very evasive. They actually kill the bigger ones that are good for eating.
Really?
Yeah, they climb underneath and pop it up and go and.
Are they native? Are they native to your area?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we have a lot of invasive species that we try to, somehow get into our waters. Like the lionfish is one right now that is just.
Oh, I've been watching that.
It's crazy. I mean, they eat everything and nothing eats them. They eat everything that's smaller than them, and nothing eats them. And we've seen some fish start to eat them, like a mutton snapper. Occasionally we'll eat them, and a diver can, hold one out, and a mutton snapper might come over and eat them. But it doesn't really seem like they're really taking off, because that was the idea. Like, maybe we could teach these fish that this is a prey species, but I don't know. There's a lot of spines on those things. I don't think a lot of things want to eat them, but they're very hard to get rid of. I mean, people go out, we'll have a lionfish tournament. They'll spear 500 of them, and it doesn't seem to make a dent in the population. I mean, you'll have 20 boats that come back, and they're spearing hundreds of them each, and it doesn't seem to make much of a dent in the population. They're just very fast reproducing species that's not really supposed to be there. But anyway, I didn't know if that was the same with that urchin or not. So what kind of gear are you wearing when you're diving in way less than 50 degree water when you were doing this?
I wore a 9/16 one-piece dive suit, and a lot of times you'll find the guys wear a two-piece, long john with a jacket, beaver tail deal. And they use 1/4 inch, and then that on top of each other, two-piece turns out to be a 1/2 inch, or they can go 3/8, even 1/2 inch, depends on the diver.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
And so when you're doing this diving, a day of diving is like how much time underwater to harvest these urchins?
We would do an 8-hour day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many dives is that?
If you're on them and you're getting them, then we would do 4 to 6, 7 dives.
Wow.
because then you're bringing up your bag and you're setting up and getting back down there.
And then just go the next day.
Yeah. Well, our operation was a 2-day trip boat. So we spent the night out there. Diesels, move slow, but sure. And the skipper saved a lot of money on gas. And, so we'd end up out there at 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning. And then we'd dive till late, eat, wake up and do an 8-hour day and then get heading home before the sunset. But we travel at night.
Mm-hmm. And so what kind of habitat do these urchins live in? Like, I don't know much about where you're diving, but it seems like you have the kelp forest out there. You have lots of other type areas that people will fish and stuff. But what does it look like where you're diving for the urchins?
It's usually there's all kinds of different shale shelves and reefs and rock formations. And a lot of times, depending on the currents that flow, different nutrients end up supporting like kelp moss or algae that grow on the rock, and the urchins will crawl around and eat that as well as the kelp. Mm-hmm. They don't just eat kelp. A lot of times they eat what gets produced around the kelp. So it was pretty nice scenery. I definitely enjoyed my time as far as going diving, some spots more than others. I mean, it just light up. Yeah.
So obviously your book that you wrote about your 3 life-changing events, one is with a great white shark, and it is occurring at this time of your life where you're doing this commercial diving. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what happened?
Well, we headed out. I've been doing it for about a year, and we went out this one day. We went out a day before advised. It was like a month-long swath of storms. So, as I like to say in the book, we were starving, and just as we were starving, so was most everything in that ocean, because nothing's really going at it when everything's moving and you can't see. So we went a day early, and we paid for it. It was horrible visibility by the time we got out there. But as we were going out there, fog cover, it was just not the best of days. And the thing about the Channel Islands, San Miguel is the westernmost island, and it's small, and it sticks way out there off of Point Conception. It was completely socked in. And so we had to slow down to like 5 knots when we plunged into this kelp. And it's just eerie stuff. And we go to a place called Shark Park, aptly named. It's right next to the graveyard of ships. It always makes me wonder about those people who survived their shipwreck, and as they're swimming for the island, experienced a death before drowning, because I mean, you got the park right next to the graveyard of ships. So right. That's where we are. And the skipper tries to go locate. His job was, as the hunter, is to take a scooter, underwater scooter, 3 feet or so. And it has handles on the shroud. And he goes off into the Shark Park waters looking for a suitable spot to harvest. And he comes back really frustrated and real angry, throwing his gear around, cussing up a storm. And I'm just sitting there. I got the tender, who's the topside boat tender, is sitting there just watching this scene, first day on the job. And he just looks at me and goes, "Go to bleeping ahead if you want to give it a shot." And as the hunter, if you start getting good at it, obviously the catch is going to increase too. So,
So wait a minute. Why was he so frustrated? Because of the visibility, or what? Yes. He wasn't finding anything, or what?
Wasn't finding anything, getting thrown around 10 to 15 feet under there. Yeah. Bunch of swell, getting slammed into rocks. no way to truly work, even if we found them.
Right.
So I think he's really pissed, really mad at himself,
Yeah.
So, so he's flipping out because he's spending the money to go out there. And, so I get my chance. So I go, sure, I'll go take a shot at this. So I took off with a tank and with the scooter and went looking for a protected area, thinking maybe he didn't, we would call them like big cul-de-sac streets that dive into these huge kelp forests. And if you go in, if you get to go into one of those, the current's less, the surge is less, and the visibility is better. Typically, it's just like a little clearing in the storm.
Mm-hmm.
And as I found one, I made my way back there, and then at that point, my life changed.
What did you see?
I saw the thing that made it change. Yeah, I had an experience. I don't know if you noticed on there, but Ralph Kellier and I had been corresponding. He's known as the #1 shark expert in the world. And he's read the manuscript that's in the book, every detail. And it's really hard to try to describe it because it's too miraculous to get away. And he says it's in the top 5 of all time escapes. And I keep hitting him up. I'm all, well, where does it land? and he won't give it to me. Come on, Ralph. Is it #1? And he still hasn't said it's not. So we're still communicating, and I'm still looking for that. I'm still looking for that #1. But I do have a #2 shark story.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to hear that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So have you ever heard of a guy named Bob Kirby?
I don't think so. Well, maybe.
Kirby Morgan dive masks. They use them in Florida.
Okay.
They use them all over the world.
Okay.
And Bob was a pioneer in the diving industry. He invented so many things, and they kept getting stolen back there. Just throw money at it, put your name on it, and run over whoever really thought of it was, what happened to Bob a lot. And one of the things that he was working on was surface to subsurface communications. And in the 1960 area, he's doing abalone with, you've seen that heavy gear, hard hat diving.
Right.
They put a breastplate, more like shoulder pads, like football shoulder pads on you. And then they screw a helmet on you with 4 ports. And Bob was doing the communication thing, just screwing around with abalone. So as he was an abalone diver. And back then he's harvesting these abalone, and you didn't just harvest one at a time back then, especially in this heavy gear. They were actually growing in large slabs on top of each other. So he's working this big, 5-6 foot circle that's about 3 or 4 foot tall of abalone that's piled on top of each other, eating the growth on top of each other's shells. And then he's talking up top, and he's telling them, yeah, I'm getting close. I'm going to be able to load this on there. And in the book, I call myself the mighty man of the sea. And I'm reading your stuff. I'm going like, okay, mighty man of the sea talks to ocean gladiator. And anyway, Bob thought he was both, right? He was, his self-described thing was just off the hook about nothing bothered me. I was ready for anything. So as Bob is doing this, in 30 feet of water at Anacapa Island, and they would just lower a net down there. They didn't float bag up anything. It was just, back then it was so plentiful. So they had a net laying there, and he was supposed to flop this big slab of abalone over onto it, and then they just would hoist it up. And as they're coordinating this maneuver, Bob goes, Bob's sitting there going, yeah, I'm getting ready. And then topside goes, Bob, we got a fish. We got a big fish up here. And he's going, fish, what fish? He's like, no, Bob, this is big. Bob, it's coming down. And so he's sitting there, looking around for what fish. And he says he checks both ports twice. And on the second time over his left shoulder, he says this thing starts swimming by, and it was like a conveyor belt of white shark. Just
wow.
Shark. And he's just watching it. And he went from, I can take on anything to whimpering child. At the sight of this thing, he starts screaming, I'm coming up. And I don't know if you know this about these things, Tom, but they're never full. They can just eat, and then they'll practice taking something out because they're rarely satisfied.
Wow.
When they get that size.
Well, that's a huge animal.
Yes.
I mean, when you get to see a great white shark of a full grown great white shark could be 16 to 25 feet long, maybe. I don't know. That's a huge, our sharks in the Keys, we do have great white sharks. I don't see them myself, but people are seeing the great whites more and more in the Florida Keys. The shark that we see the most of big size is the hammerhead shark, and they come in and eat the tarpon, and those things can be 13 or 14 feet long and as big around as the boat that we're fishing in. I mean, literally could be 1,000 pounds. So when you start putting a foot or 2 feet, they don't just get longer, they get bigger around. And those great white sharks, I mean, I can't even imagine how big something like that is, especially when you're in the water with it. That is incredible. And I see these people diving with them, even in cages or whatever. It's still like, that is just an experience that I don't know. I mean, I can't even imagine it. I've never done it, but to be someplace I mean, it's almost like, being facing down a grizzly bear or a lion or a tiger or something that you just look at and you just realize I have nothing. There's nothing I can do here. I mean, you face down a pit bull or something. You're thinking, this is going to hurt. This is bad. But maybe there might be something that I can do. But I mean, there are certain animals on this planet that there's literally nothing that we can do.
That's how Bob felt. And he went from this, I can do anything, to I have absolutely nothing to offer here.
Right.
That thing is too massive and way, way too carnivorous to put a dent in this situation. But what transpired was that heavy gear, they tie themselves down to the bottom and they pound pitons in. Because if you fall over in that stuff, you can't get back up sometimes, depending on the angle.
So now you're in the great white shark's territory, and you're staking yourself to the ground like a chum bag.
That's it.
That's amazing. So he decides that he's coming up, and he comes up and
oh no, he doesn't come up yet.
Oh.
No. So he has to detach from these things. He's just screaming. He's coming up.
Yeah.
So this monstrous shark, and it's beautiful visibility, like 100 feet of visibility. And as he's sitting there, he's detaching. This thing does this massive U-turn, like 70 feet away, and comes gliding up with no tail thrusts, nothing, just going off its last tail thrust and momentum it gained from its turn, and comes cruising right up to him as he's sitting there.
Wow.
Just, and it stops, he said, about 3.5 feet away, where he could have maybe reached out and touched one of the teeth 5 to 6 inch teeth that have a bunch of seal skin stuffed up in between them. And he just sat there just waiting to have his life ended. And then out of nowhere, the thing blasts off to his right. And he starts screaming again. He's trying to get this other thing unattached, and he can't get it. And all of a sudden he gets this eerie feeling, and he starts looking around in the ports, and this heavy gear is so heavy that you can actually move around a lot without it. It's a dry suit. And he turns around and looks through the back port, and there's the shark, the same exact distance away, just staring at this thing it's never seen before.
Damn.
And he's just falling apart physically and verbally. And then the thing blasts off again over his left shoulder, and he yells, "Pull up all the slack, I'm coming up." And he turns the exhaust valve off on this dry suit setup and turns the intake all the way on and starts blowing up like the Pillsbury Doughboy as he's attached. And he gets his dive knife and cuts the line that's attaching him to the bottom. And he blasts up, and they reel in all the slack and yank. There's 3 or 4 guys, and they yank and they get him to land on the boat.
Wow.
And there his diving career ended. He never went back in the water again.
Wow. That's crazy. And is he deep enough that he gets the bends when he comes up like that, or is he okay?
No, he was 30 feet deep. Okay. You usually have to get, at least 1 atmosphere of pressure to start building up nitrogen. And if it's only 35 or 40 feet, it takes you all day. And so no, he wasn't hurt at all.
Wow. But that was enough to shake a veteran diver to not go again.
Never went in the water again. We tried to get him to go. He was my instructor at Santa Barbara City College dive program on mixed gases and all this advanced diving stuff that he studied and had completely understood. And but we couldn't get him diving again for anything. Had a blast with him.
So what about your encounter? You encounter this great white shark. Does it bite you?
Nope, it doesn't bite me. I was never bitten, but I can tell you it was the same. In talking to Bob, I mean, I don't know. There's no way it could be. I mean, perceivably, it could have been the same shark 20 years later, but it was in that same size situation.
Yeah,
it was a massive shark, and I'm telling you, Tom, it's really tough to go into it further without ruining the book, the details. My wife kicked me out of the bedroom. I took this on 40 years later, and I started having nightmares and I started doing stuff in bed, and she smacks me even harder. And then she turns into the shark. It was getting radical. So I had to get out of the bedroom and write this book because the heaviness of the situation was, I just suppressed it.
It's like PTSD. I mean, that's basically what that is, right? You're having post-traumatic stress disorder of this incident that you had in your life 40 years ago.
Yep.
You were able to suppress it. When you get out of the water, how did this change your life?
Well, that's funny you said that, because that night I couldn't fall asleep more than like 10 minutes. The first time in our setup on the boat, there's 2 bunks, and then there's a little walkway that the topside boat tender would sleep down on the floor, and we'd just be careful of getting in and out of the boat when, we needed to use the facilities at night. But within 10 to 15 minutes, I erupt into a nightmare of nightmares, like I was getting eaten. And I was running back and forth on my friend, James Smith. And he wakes up screaming because he doesn't know what's going on. So I hear him screaming, and the whole nightmare just went off. I thought for sure he was a maimed victim underneath my feet as I'm running on. him in his sleeping bag. I kept awakening, and they kicked me out of the cabin, and I screamed for all the outdoor creatures all night. But then I was told if I don't go back in the water, my career is done.
Yeah.
The next day. And through a process that took hours, I finally got back in, and I conquered it, but did that serve me well? It's turned out here I am.
Yeah. How long did you dive after that commercially?
For another 2.5, 3 years.
Wow. And well, I mean, but that situation where, it's kind of you got to get back on the horse, that throws you off.
Exactly.
Like that's what they always say, but they probably never got thrown off a horse. That is probably a very good advice coming from somebody who may have never seen what you saw. On that day that you get back in, through this process of, I'm sure, just trying to come to terms with what you're doing, and that the chances of seeing that shark are there again. How did you do that? Like, what did you do? Did you actually commercial dive that day? Were you productive? What was that like?
Oh, I don't know I can't even remember what I gathered. I can't remember. All I remember doing is jolting around countless times at every shift in current, every kelp fluctuation, every fish out of the corner of my eye turned into that shark. And right through you, just imagine, what do I say? Yeah, bolts of, electricity, like a modern football stadium, got turned on over and over and over and over again. And I was forever changed, and I kept surfing with a determination that I wasn't going to let my life that I wanted to spend in this ocean be taken from me. So the fight was on for years, and that I didn't even put a label of PTSD on it, because I always associate that with military men. That I'm so glad I live in a country that we have them.
Right.
I never wanted to put myself on that level, but I met one and told him about the book and what I'm working on and some of the effects. And he's like, dude, you got it.
Yeah. I think, I understand where you're coming from with full respect for the military and people who have been through, wars to protect our freedom. I get it, but PTSD is PTSD. It's you have it because of that. Like that's a near death experience. And maybe it wasn't, maybe that shark was further away than you thought it was. I don't know. But in your mind, it was right there, right? Like, I know I've had something similar to that, where maybe when I look back on it years later, maybe I'm like, well, maybe that bear wasn't going to attack me, but still had a close encounter with a bear. And just like your story, I still think about it. Like, wow, like that kind of freaked me out. It definitely freaked me out. So you get back in the water, you start diving again. You do it for another couple of years. What makes you change professions at that point?
I had the final career-ending injury was my shoulder. I dislocated it numerous times previous, and then once or twice diving, and then I had a really bad one. And we got it back in, but after that, it tore it up so bad that at 1 atmosphere of pressure, it was turning into a wet noodle. It really scared me. And I'd come back and it'd start working slow but sure, but that was it. I was like can't be productive anyway. So it was time to hang up the wetsuit and get on land and give up that life.
I think it's interesting though that you mentioned that, you were afraid of getting back in the water, and even when you do, you're seeing that shark everywhere, but you wouldn't let it steal or take away surfing from you. So you must really love surfing.
I do. And if you think about this, Tom, give me another activity where you're riding a moving surface. I've thought about it long and hard. And skydiving and that, yes, but you can't really see it, and you can't do what you want to do as readily as surfing. Mm-hmm. Whitewater rafting is a good one. I've done that. And you are riding a moving surface, but whitewater is the most boring part of surfing. So I've thought about this long and hard. What is this allure that's got me so deeply? And that's part of it, is the creativity on a moving surface. You just don't know what's going to happen from wave to wave. And it's the thrill that has me and had me big time back then. Yeah. Now I'm more lessons. I had to get out of the water to do this book because it was overwhelming, and I couldn't enjoy myself out there, and I knew I wouldn't be able to write well.
Really?
So
you didn't think that you were enjoying you could enjoy yourself because you were writing this book?
Yeah, to bring back all these memories and to relive them to the point where I could do a good documentation of what transpired. I had to get out of the water. There was no way I was going to be able to enjoy surfing in the water if I'm sitting there thinking about the details of this thing that almost took me out. There's just no way to put the two together. So I reckoned that it's time to do that. I tried to write the book back in 2012. I was right there for a shark attack at Surf Beach, California, and actually helped the victim get out of the water, and was right there for him when he died.
Wow.
And that was really traumatic. And I really felt that now's the time, along with what has transpired in my life, together with this situation, I'm going to get this book going. And I didn't monitor my assistant very closely, and backing up computers wasn't as advanced as it is now. And a good chunk of time vanished in one afternoon.
Oh no.
And yeah. And I said, oh, that's it. Now I'll just wait until a later time. And 4 years ago, that time showed up bigger than big. And I knew it was time. So
what happened then that you decided that it was time?
Well, life just kept dealing me, basically like almost like bumpers, bringing me into a situation that I am going to have to give this up or do this differently or change my lifestyle this way because of all these different responsibilities. We had a child late. She's 20 years old now. But back when this book was decided upon, she was turning the corner from 15 to 16, and lots of responsibilities in this day and age were constantly piling up, keeping me out of the water anyway. And it just turned into, oh my gosh, this is the time. I'm basically dry docked anyway. So let's go. So that all started rolling together. And Why Am I Alive is finished.
It is. So what was the process of writing like this for you? I mean, you mentioned that it was traumatic because it brought back so many memories of not this, but there's other events in your life that you wonder why you're alive. So how long was the process of writing the book? If you discount the time that you started and a big portion of it vanished. So then you restart this thing. How much time does it take to finish it?
It was a total process of 4 years.
4 years. And,
yes.
And what kind of feeling do you have when you come away finishing something like that, where you did go through these traumatic situations and relived them?
It's somewhat surreal, just like speaking to you about it. I thought it was just going to be a suppressed, I want to keep surfing. I don't want to deal with going through what it's going to take to do this. I really don't want to, I'm sure you've had some good wounds where you bandaged it up and did something really fun for a while. And then you go, man, I'm feeling it. I'm starting to feel this is getting too deep and too festering. Time to rip that bandage off and get to this and be done with whatever activity, chasing bears or whatever you're doing. It's time I got to let this heal. I got to get in there and do it right. And basically I can put it in the same metaphor like that. You digging in the pain of ripping it open and getting some, rubbing alcohol in there or whatever, hydrogen peroxide, how it foams.
Yeah. Well, was it worth it? Because I mean, like you mentioned kind of that you purposefully decided not to do this for a while. Like it was in order to surf and in order to do the thing, you didn't want to think about this. And then later in your life, you decide, okay, it's time to get back in there. You mentioned that it caused all kinds of problems. You had to get out of the water. And so now when it's over, was it worth it? Are you ready to go surfing again? Did this reignite the passion or where are you now?
I am. I'm really stoked I did this because it's I'm getting so much feedback of people that have gone through different traumatic things in their life, and it has helped them grab hold of their situation in a like manner. Not that they've had these experiences, but it gives them confidence to handle theirs. And the thing was too, Tom, is I surf what we call heavy water. I like to ride it big. Mm-hmm. And it's a funny phenomenon that happens when you're younger. You don't have enough wisdom to do it. And then as you're getting older and you've almost drowned a few times and you've been through, giant surf and being held under and to keep your cool and do what we do, you start getting older. And now you're able to do this amazing activity, but now you're getting older. Now,
your body
it's the other thing. Now what's that?
Your body won't hold up.
Right. The wisdom is actually now putting you in more peril. I found when the 28, 35-year-old guys would look really surprised when I showed up in the lineup, and there's only 4 or 5 guys in the water and there's 50 on the beach watching. Then I started going, maybe I'm starting to put too much into this surfing at this stage in this level of surfing, this heavy water riding. And after you do it for a while, you try to size down. The crowds get thicker, the thrill goes down, and then you're sort of like, well, now what? Because you really don't know how to keep going because it's too risky. Just like you could run from a bear a lot better than you could at 30 than you will at 50, right? But
at 50, I'm not gonna see that bear. Like I know, like there's so many parallels to what you're talking about. I mean, not that I see a lot of bears, but just in whatever it is that when you're young, you don't have enough wisdom to be doing the thing. Like that's what you said, that when you're young, you don't have enough wisdom to be riding these big waves because you don't see what the ocean is delivering to you, and you probably get yourself in a really bad situation. Then you get that wisdom, and then there'll be a window in your life where that's your jam. That's what you're doing. And then you'll really know what you're doing, but then your body can't handle what you're dishing out. And you could do that with CrossFit. You can do that with football. You can see aging football players that, they finally know what they're supposed to know, and they're just getting ready to have their best season ever, but their body just won't. It's just not prepared to do what. But I think, people have said, if you have the wisdom of an old man and the body of a young man, that's what you're really looking for, right? Like to have the experience and the wisdom, but then to have the durability and the strength and the recovery of a young person. That's what you're looking for right there. It's not that you just want to be young. You want to be an old man in a young man's body, right? Like that's the ultimate, right? Like,
that's when you could do. You do get to be a mighty man of the sea.
Well, you do, because now there are limits, and you know what they are, and you might safely ride those limits, but you're not going to go over the limits. And that's what a young man does. Is the young man's constantly going over the limits, but his body can handle it. You get smashed in whatever we're talking about, surfing, anything, going out in the ocean on days that you shouldn't. A young man can get, you get hit in the face and you can keep going. But the old man, he's been hit in the face a lot of times. Then there's no reason to do that anymore, right?
I figured it out a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, because when you do get hit, it hurts, and the recovery is not as much. So this, so you're happy that you wrote the book. Did you do an audiobook? Because I like audiobooks.
I did. I did an audiobook.
Did you read it yourself?
I did.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I built a sound booth. I was going to use a sound booth, but you said you're going to have the visual. I didn't want.
Okay, well, this is good. You got good audio. And what was the experience of rereading this book? Did you had you purged all these feelings, or did all these feelings come up again?
No. I think the audiobook's going to be pretty cool, because I break down a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I break down. I'm blown away that I'm just thinking about it almost right now. So yeah, it's man. It's amazing. Just like you have stuff. It's just amazing that I was able to can it for so long. It's so cool. That's why I'm so glad about writing the book, because I know that I was supposed to do it to get this stuff out. And it's funny. I just want to go back to that one thing we were talking about on the old wisdom guy. I was doing, one of the few guys at our public pool here able to do 2 lengths underwater, and then, doing all this stuff you see these guys doing, carrying stuff and staying underwater and just expanding my lungs. So when I do this, I won't drown doing it.
Like all the Laird Hamilton XPT stuff,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And,
familiar with it.
Yeah. So I was doing all that. And then I was like, going, my gosh, because you're getting older, you're getting tired, getting in shape to do it. And then it's like going, if I'm getting tired, getting ready, what happens if there's a really bad situation and I'm downgraded a little bit? So the doubts started creeping in too. So the doubts, and that's, as I'm sure if you have a doubt at the wrong time, you're done.
Well, that's where the wisdom is. I mean, I really think that deciding not to do this anymore, or not to ride those particular waves or those particular conditions, that's the wisdom. Because now okay, well, I can do that as long as my head is clear and I'm confident. But as soon as I have doubt, it's time to get out of the water, because I know what's about to happen. And you could take that anywhere. On like I lift a lot of weights, and if you're gonna do like a back squat at a certain weight, it's fine if you're confident about that. But the second that you're not confident about that, and you're about to step under a weight that you've never done before, that's not a good time to be there. And that's where someone with wisdom says, "Not today." It may happen another day, but it's not going to be today. And I think that's not. I think you should. I don't know about. I shouldn't say I think you should, but I think that it is. it's wisdom that puts you in that place to where you decide, okay, well, I have reached the end of this journey and I'm not going to ride those waves anymore because I have doubt. And you know what that doubt does, right? Like, sure. I don't know. I think that's wisdom. I think that's the definition of wisdom, actually.
Definitely. The thing about the surfing that's a little bit different, I believe, than anything that I know of is you can pull it off over and over, right? So you're pulling it off. But that one set that is bigger than it was supposed to be, you don't have the right board, the current tide, everything has shifted, and this multitude of conditions come together to put you into a level of exertion that you planned for. You had wisdom to meet a certain level, and all of a sudden it ratcheted up on you. And there you are in the situation that you go, and it happens at every level of surfing, but you're like, I did not bargain for this. And now you're in it. And as we ocean goers say, this is in the book, you're in it and you're in it good. Because now you don't know what's going to happen. So that was the thing, was I could get in it and in it good. If that didn't happen, I could pull it. But if that did happen, I could be done. And here I am with kids and grandkids. And it's just, it didn't add up. So,
but that's
writing
wisdom.
The book,
that's wisdom.
Yes.
I mean, and
writing the book was like, I still got this thrill, right? Actually experiencing these things, as hard as it has been, was a stinking thrill to have it so real and so powerful again. After suppressing it all these years, it's sort of like, wow, I'm not riding the waves, I'm riding the words.
Nice. So what's the big takeaway here? Is I mean, and I don't mean to spoil the book at all, but what to you, whether it's going through this process of suppressing something and then letting it all out in a book form, or is it kind of, facing your demons, or what is it? What's the big takeaway in your opinion, from your experience here?
Anything's possible. Don't put limits on things. Don't draw lines, because there are none. There's too many coincidences, because there truly are none. They're really incidences. And just see where your life takes you when you take off the limits. See where it goes.
Nice.
Because nothing's impossible. And these escapes spell that out. In many ways, I don't want to ruin the book.
Yeah. So where can somebody find the book?
Right now we're doing pre-orders on whyamIalivebook.com. There's a box to check. We're working on getting the pre-order prepared. And then you can also check a box that just want to know when it's for sale. So whyamIalivebook.com, the title of the book with the word book.com is my webpage. And you just fill out the information, and we're looking to launch at the end of the month. We're doing everything we can. Final editor, final little things going down, but that's it.
Nice.
And then we're getting it.
What length is the audio? How long does it take to listen to the audio?
The audio? Oh, do you want me to guess?
Yeah. I mean, guess. Is it a 7-hour book or a 20-hour book?
No.
Or
No, it couldn't be 7 hours, could it?
Yeah, it could.
It could?
Yeah.
It's 265 pages.
Yeah, that's not going to take 7 hours. That's like a 2-hour book, 2.5-hour book. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
I did everything I could to keep it under 300, but it has 25 pages of illustrations.
Oh, really?
So these these nightmares, 4 a.m. That was another reason I got kicked out.
Did you do it? Did you draw these?
My wife did the cover, and my wife and I teamed up to do the cover. And then she was helping a lot with the illustrations. And after year 3, she goes, come on. So I finished up the last couple, but yeah,
you did.
Her and I.
So who's the better artist? Obviously your wife's probably the better artist because she started. By far. Okay. But you're just kind of, Edgar Allan Poe used to do that. He used to have these horrible nightmares and he used to wake up and write them down. And that became like The Raven and all these crazy stories that he had. He would write these things down immediately. Edgar Allan Poe. He was
oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. I mean, I've read that about him, that he would have these wicked nightmares and he would just start writing them down immediately. And I don't know if they were drug induced or what, but that was one of the things that he did, like to write down all of his nightmares as soon as he woke up. And maybe I've got the wrong person, but anyway, some famous writer used to do that. I'm sure plenty of famous writers do that. Your brain does incredible things when you're asleep, and you're dreaming. Yes. And then if you are conscious enough to think about, okay, well, that was awesome. I don't want to forget it. I'm going to write it down right now. Is that what you were doing with these illustrations and stuff? You would try to just like have these nightmares and then you would just start drawing?
I wasn't trying to have them,
right.
But when I had them, as I was working on the text, I'd go to sleep and have the dream, the nightmare, the vision of the whole thing. And right when I woke up, I'd hurry and do a rough draft, which then invoked the good picture, or detailed picture, and then spend a lot of time with my wife, and we'd work it out and get it down and get it on there. And 25 pages of illustrations. Wow.
That's really cool. So you have your perspective of how you feel after you've written this book, and it seems like you kind of feel like you purged this thing. What does your wife think? Has she noticed a difference in you since you've brought this to completion?
Yeah, she has. We've never been closer. In different levels of understanding back then, because I didn't tell her a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to bring her in either, because it was it's going to be, when you go diving and then she's, home alone and you're out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to tell her this stuff and have her, what do I say in the book? Having to sleep with this shark swimming around in the bedroom,
mm-hmm.
had enough going on. So yeah, we've become as close as we ever have been.
Nice.
Yeah, it's rad. It's like, wow. So I feel like this renewing of the youth thing going on too with us. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. Like a renewing of the youth and a huge weight lifted off your shoulders, and you've never been closer. That's fantastic. Is that why you're alive? Is that what it's all about?
That's what I'm talking to you right now, man. Yeah. That's a huge reason.
Nice. Well, I like it. I can't wait to read it or listen to it. I do a lot of driving, so I'll probably listen to it.
Hold on.
But it sounds like an incredible story, and it sounds like a story that a lot of people will identify with, whether they've seen a shark or not, just having some sort of a traumatic experience in their life. So kudos to you for attacking this thing. You suppressed it for so long, and then you started, you faced it, and now look at you. You and your wife are closer than ever. That's awesome.
Amen. Yeah. Thanks, man. And I look forward to this one more. I was telling my nephew who helps me with all this. I was just like going, cool, man. Mighty Man of the Sea meets Ocean Gladiator.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Paul, thanks for sharing it with us. I really appreciate it. And if you want to check out the book, give us the address one more time.
It is Why Am I Alive, lowercase, whyamIalivebook.com.
Okay. That's where you get it. Pre-order it. It should be out soon. Okay, that's man. It. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. This is great. And I look forward to reading the book.
Right on, Tom. Hey, one more thing. It's going to be on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be on Amazon. We're hoping right in the beginning of June sometime.
Nice. Okay, perfect.
Right.
All right, Paul.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, man. I hope you have a great day.
You too. Thanks,
See ya.
Tom. See ya.